Next stop, I hang out with Linda, who takes me on a behind-the-scenes town tour and explains Kitimat's incredible history of strippers and smelters.
This is my favorite drinking establishment right here.
This is a drinking establishment?
Well, technically it's a timber mart, but if you go there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they usually have a case of Corona, and it's valued customer day. So.
Oh, insider information.
Yeah, so this is what is called the hotel.
The hotel.
Yeah, I don't know when it closed, but it's probably a good thing that it is closed. It's a cabaret sports bar. It used to have strippers in it, and the strippers used to. It's heated by wood, which is kind of funny considering how much natural gas and electrical we have here. And so it's heated by wood, and they used to have a wood fire pit or fireplace in the middle, and so the strippers, when they come to town, their job was to cut the wood if they wanted to be warm when they were stripping. So they had like this fence barricaded around there so that people couldn't get in there and get hurt or like grab axes or fall into the fire. And so you'd see strippers with their high heels and their cute little outfits about to go on stage, and they're chopping wood. And from what I understand, some of the strippers actually made more money chopping wood.
Outside?
Yeah, like, here, sweetheart, here's some more money so you don't have to come back to this shithole. And so a friend of mine had a room up top, and apparently rooms were super cheap. He got pots.
I bet they were.
And he got pots and pans in his room, and I was like, well, that sounds like a pretty nice establishment. And he was like, yeah, it was to catch the water because the roof leaks. And then he was telling me that you could buy drugs from behind the bar and just put it on your debit card. And you'd be like, I'll get 6 shots, and then I will also get a half a gram of whatever you wanted. And I was like, this place. Oh, this place. So
You were ever in here?
I was never in here.
Oh, that would have been
we
so
closed
good
out
to see.
before I got here. But yeah, all the locals talk about it like it was.
I'm picturing like badass muscular strippers with like if you can chop wood and peel your clothes off and put on a show twice.
Well, strippers are usually pretty muscular anyways because of the pole work they do.
Right.
At the same point, it was pretty funny. I was like trying to imagine, and like I've seen a lot of strippers in my life, so this was like trying to visualize it was kind of funny. It was like
The hotel
the
506 Enterprise Ave, and what an enterprising business it must have been. Wow, a little bit of Kitimat history right there. After the stripper tour, Linda takes me out to see the other side of Kitimat's economy, LNG, or liquid natural gas, and aluminum. Kitimat, a word that translates locally, refers to its First Nations people as people of the snow, was developed in the 1950s to exploit the area's natural resources, and a large aluminum smelting plant was constructed. Today, the aluminum producer Rio Tinto is the town's largest employer, and somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 billion with a B dollars is being invested in a massive LNG pipeline to get Canada's liquid natural gas to Asian markets. We drove by the work camp, a site that was housing for nearly 5,000 workers. Personally, I've never seen anything like it in my life. 18 dorm units?
Yeah, and each level has 100, and each one is 3 levels.
So 5,000 workers here. Wow, that is so many people in one spot. We end at the LNG dock, a massive production that will see the daily vessel exports of LNG to overseas markets. Linda spends her days teaching for BCIT Marine online campus to up-and-coming vessel workers. At the same time, she's championing the movement of inclusion for less recognized workers like females, First Nations, and LGBTQ workers into an industry that has been dominated by a white male workforce since its inception. Now that workforce is retiring, and Linda's hoping to revolutionize it to the more diversified world of today.
When it gets here. And so there should be 4 production lines by the time LNG is done here. This LNG Canada site, and then there'll be one over at the Cedar, and then there should be one up at the Bish, and then 2 more in Root. And
wow.
That's just LNG in northern BC.
And it's good for the economy and the environment?
Well,
or it's just good for the economy?
LNG primarily is either propane or methane, and we all know cows produce a lot of methane as well as people, and sometimes badgers.
How do you feel about that?
Badger, do you produce methane?
Ooh.
Pick a fucking dog. So LNG, like when we look at bitumen and other products that are coming, out of the ground. So LNG sucks because of fracking and the way that it's developed.
Yeah.
But when it comes to using it on the ocean and using it for like ships and ferries, etc., it's actually better for the environment because if there was ever an oil spill versus an LNG spill, LNG hits the liquid natural gas is liquid at negative 242 degrees centigrade.
Okay.
So like you touch it and your finger will fall off. It will just freeze right off. Okay. So once it hits the water, there is kind of an explosive reaction just because of the different temperature grades. But what happens is it evaporates and it goes into the air, just like methane would, just like major cattle farms have methane, right? And so when it comes to dealing with our whales and our fish, etc., it's actually better for the environment than using diesel.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's what we use to, it's clean burning, they say. So there's pros and cons to it. There's a lot of people who are like against it, but then it's like in 2020, the IMO finally said that we're not allowed to use heavy fuel on vessels anymore. And to give somebody an idea, when people are talking about their cars and how many emissions our cars give off when we're not using, when we're burning diesel, the top 20 ships, and I don't mean shipping companies, I mean 20 deep sea vessels in the world burning heavy fuel produce more toxins in the atmosphere than all of the cars driving.
Holy shit.
So for them to say, you know what, we shouldn't be burning heavy fuels anymore, it was a big deal. And a lot of companies are like, well, it's going to cost us a lot of money. And we're like, yeah, we know, but so's our environment. So fix it. So now they're burning diesel, which is better, but we'd like them all to be like natural gas and electric. Hi. Great. Save the environment for you, Badger. They're the largest tugboat in Western Canada is going to be docked here. And right now, one of the other largest tugboats is so small in comparison that it can fit on the back deck of this tugboat.
Oh, shit.
And to date, there has not been one female co-pilot.
Oh, are you trying to change that?
But I won't change that, but there is a woman who just wrote for the pilots, and then she had a baby.
Oh, so close.
Yeah, she's going to make it, but she's going to take some time off to be a mom first. So, yeah, I mean, like, the industry's changing, and it's huge, and working on the water, working near the water is like, it's super cool. Super fun.
And if you're in charge of inclusivity and diversity, have you seen any changes?
I'm starting to see them slowly. They're with the LNG project.
Like, what's your role?
What's my role is to teach the diversity hires, as they call them, for BCIT. So with LNG specifically, and in this area, there's a lot of incentives for Indigenous and especially women and women who are Indigenous to get into the trades, etc. And so with BCIT or with C-SPAN and the High Sea Project, they have a letters of interest with LNG that says, well, we want women and Indigenous working on our boats.
Yeah.
So their diversity inclusion, they call it EDI, Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion Program, is very much how many women can we hire, how many women can we support, right? But the other problem is working away at sea for 2 weeks isn't the kind of job that is appealing to many young women who want to be moms.
Yeah, right.
But the paychecks are fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a trade-off, and this is some of the things that we've discussed, especially with C-SPAN, where I say, hey, so if we get women to work on the water, what happens when they decide to have a family? Like, how can we make it so that you don't lose an employee? Because, you know, you're investing in them and you're paying for their education as well. And how can we keep them working and part of this project? So that's
so if we're in Kitimat right now, we're surrounded by Indigenous lands of all kinds and many people.
Yeah.
So what do you think the ratio of people are that actually work in these companies that are locally hired?
Oh, that's sad. It's about, I would say it's less than 10%.
And do you think it could be more than that? Do the locals want these jobs?
They do. And there's actually people at LNG, and their goal is trades. How do we get more young people in this industry? Because the thing is, these workers that are flying in and flying out, they're going to leave. They're going to go back to Nova Scotia or wherever else they live in Canada, and they're going to go back to their families with a bunch of money that they made on this project. And yet the people who live here don't have the education to be running these plants.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden they sit over there in poverty, and we hire people, we outsource people from wherever we can find them. So even LNG, they offered me a job and said, hey, do you want to come work for us? And I was like, no, I've got other things to do. And I choose to live here even though I work remotely, and I'm supposed to be down in Vancouver, and I was like, no, it's important that we're
That's a weird mix that so many people fly into work and you actually live here but don't work on this job. You actually work.
I used to work on this job, but I recognize that, especially in the north, because everything happens in Vancouver and the big centers. The biggest issue here is that access to education is such a hard thing, and when you're so involved in your community, as many Indigenous are, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, you have to go away to trade school, and even going to Prince George, you're gone for 2 months. Well, what are you doing with your community, and how does that make your community feel when there's a person in your community that is a father, a mother, or a matriarch or whatever, and they're gone, right? So if we can't bring Moses to the mountain, i.e. the institutions that we train them at, which starts to feel kind of like a residential school, and you're like, no, we won't come to you, come to us.
Yeah, right.
Why don't we start bringing education to the north? And so when I got my job at BCIT, I was very stubborn, and I was like, no, I'm not coming south. And so within the next year, we will have established a remote campus up here where we're going to be training and teaching and mariners and offering courses that will benefit the community and benefit the people that work on the water. Because when you think about it, the Indigenous people have been here for thousands and thousands of years. They know these waterways better than anyone else. So why are we not, employing them to be good stewards of the land that is theirs?
Yeah, right. That they know and respect. After the educational tour, Linda takes me and Badger out for a stunning hike to a lookout point for the region. So we're just coming up to the Bish lookout point above Kitimat. Looks like Badger is leading the way. I see a little glimpse through the trees there. Oh man. Oh my God, the build up, the excitement. Top of the world. Oh, sick, that's amazing.
Right?
Oh shit. Wow. Next stop, the beautiful seaside town of Prince Rupert, where fiddling with the camera has me flying off the road.